Coming up next, we have the Pit Bike Vets, which is always a very close race. We've got Simon Gates on pole position from Mark Davis, Richard Rice on the second row. Only a few tenths of a second covering the top three. They're all very, very close indeed. One of our regulars, of course, Richard Barnes, Chris Blofield, Mark Evans, all the big names qualifying well on this cold day at Whilton Mill. And, well, this is another one you've been for a treat for, Pit Bike Vets. It's always very close, this one, very competitive, and as you can see on the lap charts here, we've got about 1 second covering the top 5 riders, so pole position, not too much to go by at the moment, and it's always not short on action. The Pit Bike Vets, they make their way out onto the warm-up lap, and again, big grid of riders.
Yeah, fantastic to see this this size of grid that we're having today. Pit Bike Vets, very popular, and Matt telling us, of course, that the CRF 150 grid that we just had was the largest that's ever been had, so it's absolutely fantastic to see the series going from strength to strength with these grids growing.
I don't think I've ever seen so many CRF 150s. I think the only time I've seen them before in one place was the Honda CRF Cup, which they had in Europe for Youth Motocross Series, which was a one-make series, but it's the only time I've ever seen so many 150s in one place before. Absolutely,
and we actually haven't got a graphic big enough for them. The graphic you saw there went down to 18th place, but I can confirm there are 25 of them out there. So,
Pit Bike Vets starting to take their place on the grid. Mark Davis with a very hard-fought pole position. Mark Davis, Simon Gates in there as well, Richard Rice, Richard Barnes. All these big names in Pit Bike Vets, they're all pretty close, and this will be, from the start, is very important indeed on such a the first corner here, of course, Howard. It's fast, so you've got to get there at the front. That's obvious, of course, in motorsport, but if you don't get a clear run on that first corner, you really get bulked.
Yeah, and it's important to riders need to respect each other through there, because it's not a typical, hard braking zone into a slow corner. It really just continues picking up speed all the way through the first sector until they get to the top of the hill. So sensible but robust riding is needed through that first corner.
Just a case of getting the elbows out really, and just marking your own limits into the first corner as the race gets underway. Pit Bike Vets into the first corner as they pile through that switch back into the right-hander. Good clean start. Everyone appears to have got through safely as they go up towards Christmas corner. Looks like it could well be Barnes up there as well. Mark Davis with a good start as they charge into the first corner. And we just saw Joanna Benz, our guest rider at the back of the field. She's doubling up into the Pit Bike Vets as well, so plenty of track time for her as well.
Yes, absolutely. Is it the second or third class that she's on at this point in time? I'm not quite sure, but she's certainly getting plenty of experience out there, and as we heard earlier on, loving every moment so far.
Second of 3 so far this weekend. Busy weekend for Java. She's enjoying herself, and plenty of the latest guest rider to have a great time. So Mark Davis leads from Richard Barnes, Mark Evans, Simon Gates in 4th, Richard Rice on the lead of the Vet Open class, but not much in it between the leaders.
No, absolutely, and look at this challenge for 4th place there. I believe that might be Richard Rice going through on Simon Gates.
Making the pass stick on Christmas corner, they make their way towards Zulu now, the race leaders. This, of course, is where the track differs to what we're used to at British mini bikes. It's a slightly shorter layout, big technical. When you look at the layout there on the track map, and you look how it's laid out, you wouldn't think there'd be much scope for overtaking there. We've seen it happen a couple of times though today.
Yeah, obviously putting the doubters at bay, it is possible there. And as you see, Mark Davis now opening out just a little bit, maybe of a breathing gap, and I emphasised a little bit, it's still less than a second. It can be difficult through Zulus actually, because it's a downhill corner and you can pick up quite a bit of pace through there if, don't for one moment think that this is a flat circuit. This is on sort of a gradual slope all the way up the circuit, so they're now currently at the highest point, and then they'll work their way down the hill effectively.
Very good point they had. It's, with the greatest respect to the camera crews, what you don't get on the film is just how steep how much of a gradient there is here at Whilton Mill, and the thing that really makes it a Christmas corner, it's an uphill braking zone as well, so you've got to get it bang on right as well.
Yes, and indeed when we do race on the other layout here, that sort of comes back to haunt you when you get to Ashby hairpin, because that is downhill braking for that. But the Zulu's perhaps slightly nicer as a way to pick up speed through there, because you're sort of focusing on each apex, I suppose, but certainly something that the riders have to take into consideration. As we can see here,
That was Mark Evans, I think, on the outside.
Yep.
Good move there into Christmas corner. Mark Davis taking advantage of this battle of a second, of course, and trying to break away, although it looks now that Mark Evans has got a clear bit of track and is starting to pull away in that battle for second place. Let's see if it can close up on Mark Davis. It looks like Simon Gates and there's old Richard Rice a little bit further behind, but Mark Evans now clear in that second position. They're coming round towards the final corner now, and it looks like Richard Barnes, just confirm that, he's on the unfamiliar number 29 on the bike.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Am I making a rookie mistake again?
No,
it is Richard Barnes.
Well, that's definitely his riding gear, but maybe he's on a different bike, I'm not sure. Usually familiar number 8, so number 8 on your timing screen, that's number 29 that you can see on your screens right now. Richard Barnes in third.
He's got Simon Gates for company now. Gates has currently holds the fastest lap of the race of 44.6, which is certainly something to write home about in terms of a time. That's a very impressive pace that he's setting at the moment. So Barnes is going to have to keep one eye over his shoulder here, although Gates in turn is under pressure from Richard Rice.
So let's look at Richard Rice. He's still shadowing there just behind this little battle for third place. Mark Davis, meanwhile, 44.6, setting his fastest lap of the race. So Mark Evans was closing up. The gap 1.6 seconds between first and second as they make their way up towards Christmas corner. Well, Mark Evans, he is still in there. Actually, Davis pulled away just by a few tenths of a second. Not much, and it's still 1.6 seconds between first and second place. Still got a few more laps to go in this one. And definitely keeping an eye out here for Mark Evans in second. But still, this battle of a third is raging.
Yeah, fantastic stuff so far. Barnes managing to hold them at bay. Still Simon Gates, I believe, although Richard Rice did have a look into Christmas on this time around.
And actually Mark Davis had to be patient there because we've got our guest rider, Joanna Benz, who's a lap down now, and just had to make sure he let her know that he was there, basically.
Yeah, indeed, and this battle for third, of course, is going to come upon exactly the same traffic. You can see them splaying out. Oh, Richard Rice is definitely keen to put a manoeuvre here on Simon Gates, but it is as they come into increments. Oh, what's that? That's Gates going off.
Gates went straight. I think he must have he misjudged the corner there. It looked like didn't realise that he was there. I think he's okay. We'll just. Where did he go? He's gone missing.
He seems to have.
He's vanished.
Obviously, someone was cooking up some good food on the site up at the top there, where all the camper vans are.
I think that must be the most logical explanation.
It was an odd one, that one.
I think he's back on the track. I couldn't even see him out of the window there. He was nearly in Daventry, I think.
Yes, well, here it's a lovely place, but probably don't want to visit it in the middle of a motorbike race. Mark Davis it is who still leads this one, although Mark Evans is keeping him honest.
Definitely 1.3 seconds extra at the gap. Reducing slightly now. Mark Davis, of course, he's starting to close up on the tail enders, and this is a real problem for the leader sometimes in a race where you start to close up on the back markers. You're the first guy from the lead to get through. Now these guys, of course, they race each other, they know who the front runners are, and for that first guy to start picking his way through them, especially these guys now who are starting to battle towards the midfield, the back of the field, having their own race, they might not know it's the leader coming through.
Yeah, absolutely, and as a leader, you kind of don't want this because it's something that upsets your rhythm.
Definitely.
You know, you were really on it, and then suddenly you've got this rider. As you say, they may be familiar with the front runners. Some of the people perhaps who are towards the back, they may not really know that rider's style as well. So you've got a less predictable person who you now suddenly have to get past, and they're not concerned with you. They're just doing their normal thing. So it's definitely a challenge for the leaders as they come up to do it. And as you say, as it's often commented in motorsport, once the first leader's gone through, it sometimes makes those...
It's almost like a pre-warning, isn't it?
Yeah, so the people running at the back sort of are more aware, oh, okay, there's some leaders coming through, so it can really pay dividends for the people in second and further down.
Because, as we say at that point, Mark Davis has got a whole gaggle of midfield riders in front of him, all battling for their own positions, of course, so they're not too inclined to get out of the way. He's going to pick down the inside into Christmas corner, and he'll be hoping to get past as many of these riders as possible towards Zulu, so he can perhaps put some gap between himself and the chasing Mark Evans. Davis, oh, look at Davis, so he's hard at work picking his way through those midfield runners.
Yeah, this is last lap of the race, and this is a nightmare situation in many ways for a leader. You do not want to come upon this kind of gaggle of bikes, excuse me. I need to put another one in the jar, don't I? As he comes around here.
Now this is the problem now, Mark Davis. Oh, and Evans is right on his tail. These back markers do not know it's the leader, and Mark Evans is on his tail. I think Evans has done enough. Here they come around the final corner. Evans has one last go, but it's not enough. Ooh.
Davis will be very happy to have finished that race, I'll tell you that. Because
all I'm going to say is about gesticulation.
Yes, apparently one of my buzzwords in commentary, but yes, you could see the body language there. Davis looking over his shoulder, going, I know what the situation is, but of course everyone else, as you say, running their own race.
When he qualified this morning, as the flag drops and away they go, with the number 6 of Mark Davis making the perfect getaway into the first few corners and up towards Christmas using all of the curb. And here he comes, Mark Davis, your early race leader.
Absolutely, actually has quite a bit of breathing space considering it's the first braking zone of the race. He clearly had a really good start there, and yeah, is able to pull out the gap, and hopefully from his perspective there'll be some squabbling behind to even increase that gap.
He'll be looking at that because just look and see where Barnes.
He almost looks over his shoulder as if to say, where'd they all go?
There was that look, wasn't there? I think he was a little bit surprised. And Richard Barnes, he didn't get a very good start. He was second, and now he's about 6th or 7th, I believe, as they come through around the first corner. Didn't get away at all well. So he's got a bit of work to do. Mark Davis, so with that perfect getaway. Bet open rider Richard Rice in 2nd place. Simon Gates, Mark Evans, Barry Prue. Good start for him into 5th position. And just on the tail of him is 79 Chris Blofield, who has a look round the outside of Prue, but can't quite make the pass stick. Richard Barnes 2nd in the Vets Open so far, but with that bad start down in 7th position. So Mark Davis with a great getaway. I think we've got some further interviews coming up very soon. Oh, we've got some. Oh, actually, it's sorry. Actually, we've got some people who are returning their transponders. My apologies. I thought somebody was coming up for an interview, but they're just bringing the transponders back after their last race. And just looking at the points here, looks like in terms of the championship, Richard Barnes at the moment would be enough to quite comfortably hold on to the title in the Vets Pit Bike Open class. Of course, they are split and racing. They are racing together, of course, but they are split in terms of points. As Mark Evans has a little peak on the outside of Richard Rice, but can't quite make the move. Mark Davis fastest lap of the race, and he's been faultless so far.
Yeah, the Vets veteran stock is pretty much a done deal with John Robinson taking home the spoils in that one. But yeah, as you say, Chris, Veterans Open is ironically enough quite open for who could win that title. They don't get any better, folks, I'm afraid. So I just put in the results for that class from the previous race we had. Richard Barnes currently doing enough to take that. However, Richard Rice currently is the leader within that class, so I'm going to do some quick maths and see if I can't give you a real-time.
We'll have a look at that, and as you can see on the track, it's still as close as ever in that battle for second. Mark Davis will be delighted with that great getaway that he had. He's on that jump on the field. Everyone else is squabbling for second place, and this is allowing Mark Davis to get in there, put some decent laps in, and start to pull away as they make their way towards the final corner. Mark Davis, number 6.
Yeah, so the scores on the doors, completely provisional, of course, at the moment, but if it finished as it stood at the moment, Richard Barnes would still take the championship within the Veterans Open, but Richard Rice, who's currently your highest runner in this race, 2nd place overall, but 1st within the Opens, would steal 2nd place from Darren Savage at the last. So there is plenty to play for here amongst the podium positions, if you will, of that championship.
It would appear to be Mark Davis in this final Pit Bike Bets race of the season is looking strong. Another fastest lap, 45.245, so running well in these colder temperatures. But behind him, all the battle is for 2nd place as Richard Rice starts to try and slowly break away from Mark Evans in 3rd place, but Evans is not letting him go and closes up again, coming up towards the final corner. And the battle now still on as Chris Blofield starts to make his way through, passing 4th place on the line. And here we see this a bit further back.
Yeah, so we're now looking back.
Neil Turner, I think.
Yeah, this is the battle for 9th between Neil Turner, Paul Ward and Pete Forsyth. Good little battle happening on here on the edge of the top 10. And there we see, in fact, Paul Ward getting great drive there and getting straight past Neil Turner up the hill. Didn't even have to wait for the braking zone at the top. So good move there. as I continue to be. Oh, and I think Pete Forsyth went around Paul Ward there. Excuse me, Neil Turner there as well. So not a good start to the lap for Neil Turner. In fact, that's quite a surprising sudden drop in pace, and I think Turner might have some kind of issue.
Possibly,
as I continue to be impressed by the somewhat sort of golden, romantic autumnal scenes we're seeing here. I have to say, it's a fantastic footage we're getting.
Very atmospheric, I have to say, Howard. It is looking good today, and we've been blessed by this great weather. The last time I was commentating on British mini bikes was at Rowra up in Cumbria, where we had an absolute deluge.
Yes, indeed, and it is extremely fortuitous that we're able to have this rather, this really nice end to the season. Mark Davis, currently your leader, and have you covered, Chris, that second position changed last time around with Mark Evans now in second, and indeed fourth place changed hands as well, with Simon Gates now ahead of Chris Blowfield. No significant changes there championship-wise within the Opens, but definitely change of plenty amongst the top as we...
Oh, good move there from Chris Blowfield. I think he's gone down the inside of Simon Gates. They went past Joanna Benz, our guest rider, either side of her, and it looks to me like may well have gone through. Actually, looks like Blowfield making up another place. Oh, and look at that from Darren Savage on Richard Barnes.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I've got to update my scores if that's happened, don't I?
So changed his line. Daring move there in the midfield, as looking now for Mark Davis, as one or two of the back markers started to come into play, and they're having their own battle just a few seconds down on Mark Davis, who's about to cross the line now, all on his own at the front. So Davis really clearing away with things at the moment. It's still Mark Evans now. He's breaking away in second place somewhat now from Richard Rice. Chris Blowfield, that great move on Simon Gates last time round by Prue, Darren Savage, Richard Barnes. And that battle we were looking at earlier with Paul Wood, Pete Forsyth and Neil Turner simmering nicely on the edge of the top 10.
Just to confirm, Darren Savage getting past Richard Barnes is not significant in terms of, well, it is significant in terms of the championship, but it does not change the overall positions at the end. It would still be Barnes with the title, and Richard Rice, currently running third overall, is still on target to take second place within that class in the championship from Darren Savage. So Savage needs to do quite a bit more, i.e. catch up to Richard Rice, in order to stop that from happening.
So the last lap board goes out, and let's have a look at this from Mark Davis, how he deals with the back markers, of course. With what we were talking about earlier, having their own race, of course, so this is where it's tricky for Mark Davis as he picks his way through. He had difficulty in the previous race, of course, getting through some of the battling midfield riders.
Absolutely, and it's what we were saying earlier on today. This is exactly what you don't want at the end of the race, to have quite this many bikes to circumnavigate, as it were. Coming through the Zulu, they look fantastic coming through in this, as I say, in the gold hue of the autumn sun, but he's going to come round here.
Oh, well.
And carefully navigate his way around, I'm sure. He has got enough gap to Mark Evans in second that he can just take it easy. And Mark Davis is going to come round and take the last win of the year in the Pit Bike Veterans for the 2017 British Mini Bike Road Racing Championship.